magic number they're chasing of 73. They're closing in, of course, on those Bulls with 72 wins in a single season. Hall of Famer Scottie Pippen evidently doesn't think Golden State would match up well with his record-setting Chicago squad. Pippen's taken out the broom. Clean sweep there, he says. Stephen A., do you agree with him that his Bulls team would sweep this Warriors team?
Absolutely not. I don't agree with that at all. I remember there have been many times. First of all, I don't want to say it's ignorant because I happen to believe that Scottie Pippen is one of the all-time greats in terms of the complete game that he brought to the table. He's a six-time champion, and even though we know Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan, the greatest ever, and he's the man, you got to remember, having that sidekick is everything. And you don't win 6 championships if you're Michael Jordan if you don't have a Scottie Pippen. So I want to give my due deference to a 6-time champion that deserves our respect. Having said all of that, I'm going to tell you that even though I get where Scottie's coming from, I don't believe they would have swept the Warriors because I don't believe that any team is going to sweep a team that shoots this good in any era. It's almost the equivalent of what I said in 2001 when Allen Iverson and the Philadelphia 76ers were going up against Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant and the Lakers in the finals. One of the things that I was, very popular for saying at that particular moment in time, and Skip will remember this, is that AI will get you one. That's what I said. Because when you have the answer and his explosive tendencies, somehow, some way, you can't convince me that somebody's just going to blow them away 4 straight. And not one single night is he going to have a big night. I would say the same to Scottie Pippen about somebody the magnitude of a Steph Curry. Yes, Scottie Pippen would have drawn that assignment. Yes, Scottie Pippen would have given him hell because Scottie Pippen was one of the elite defenders in the game. Michael would have had Clay in all likelihood, even though Michael would have seen a little time on Steph Curry. And, of course, Pippen would have seen primarily most of that time. And Steph Curry certainly wouldn't have had the nights that he's been having all season long. But do I think that Golden State would have gotten 1 or 2 games? Of course I do. When they played Reggie Miller and the Indiana Pacers, they didn't sweep them. When they played, the New York Knicks with John Starks and Derek Harper and Rolando Blackman and Ewing and Oakley and those boys, they didn't sweep them. They won a game or 2. There's been plenty of instances. I remember when we were planning on celebrating in the NBA Finals because we were so happy we wouldn't have to fly back to Utah because the Bulls were up 3-1 and went back to Chicago and was expected to close it out. And Karl Malone and John Stockton ended up winning the game, and they had to go back to Utah to win a Game 6 in that NBA Finals. So don't tell me that this Golden State Warriors team, with the greatest shooting backcourt that I've ever seen, with a multifaceted player like Draymond Green and the crew, couldn't have gotten a game or 2 in the series. I believe that a Michael Jordan and a Scottie Pippen would have beaten them in an NBA Finals matchup. But to say a sweep, no, I think that's very disrespectful to the greatness of the Golden State Warriors.
I'm sorry. I say sweep. But I'm the biggest Michael Jordan fan you will find. And number 2, I don't care what the rules would be in this contest. You could play by the old Bulls rules, hand check, physical rules. You could play by today's patty cake rules, can't touch anybody rules. Either way, obviously the second way would favor Golden State. Even under today's rules, I believe this would be a sweep. I'm going to reiterate the first point that I made in the first question today, first topic. Golden State ranks 20th in the NBA in points allowed. Do you have any idea what Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and company would do to them offensively versus their defense? They would score at will. They would score quickly. They would take them apart, offense versus defense. Now let's flip it around. I had the privilege of covering the end of the Bulls' run, 97, 98, 99. Scottie Pippen is 6'8". Michael Jordan, 6'6". You forgot to mention Ron Harper at 6'6". They played 3 sort of wingmen across the front. I saw teams in those playoffs that could not get the ball past half court. Obviously, Steph is a wizard with the basketball, but I think those 3 would just mix and match on Steph and Clay. Back and forth, he'd see all 3 of them, Steph would, at different points in the game. They are locked down, suffocating defenders. They are long, they are strong, and they are quick for their height. So he would have a hard time. And could he get crazy hot? Sure he could. But I don't think, even if he did his usual 8 out of 13 threes that we keep seeing him hit, I don't think it would be enough for them to hold off the Bulls with their defense versus the Bulls' offense. And if you want to keep going down the line, remember, Dennis Rodman would be a canceling X factor up against Draymond. I think he would cancel out Draymond's dominance, his triple-double sort of dominance, because Dennis Rodman, as you know, the best below-the-rim rebounder this league has ever seen, such a smart, cagey basketball player, he would be the perfect match for Draymond. And then if you want to go to Bogut as the 7-foot center, the Bulls only had a 7'2" center that they started, also from Australia, named Luke Longley. So that cancels that out. And then if we want to go to bench, you remember Tony Kukoc at 6'10", lefty, could shoot threes against Iguodala. I'll take Kukoc against Iguodala as much as I respect Andre. I'm just saying that all the way down the line, I think it's a bad matchup for Golden State. I think they would lose 4 straight games.
Well, I disagree with you, but I hear where you're coming from in terms of you dissecting it the way that it is. I think the thing that you have to take into consideration is that I'm not thinking about the Golden State Warriors playing back in those times. I'm thinking about this Golden State Warriors team because obviously I believe that if Golden State was playing back in those old days, okay, not the old days, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but if they were playing back in the 90s or whatever the case may be, or even in the 80s, the Bad Boy Pistons and beyond, Skip, what you have to take into consideration is that they probably wouldn't be champions today because of the rules, the level of physicality that was allowed, what you were allowed to get away with. Of course, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and those boys would have some bodies put on them. They would be getting hammered on a continuous basis. I'm talking about this Bulls team, those Bulls teams, in today's rules with a Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors allowed to play the game of basketball the way that they play it today. I think they would go through the free throw line. Scottie Pippen's a career 70% shooter from the free throw line. Don't get me started with Dennis Rodman and how awful he was from the free throw line. Steph Curry shooting over 90%. Klay Thompson shooting over 80%. Draymond Green and all of those other boys are handling. You talked about Andrew Bogut. What about a Maurice Spates pulling dudes away from the basket, capable of hitting shots? What about an Andre Iguodala? What about a Harrison Barnes, who we don't mention enough of, but is due to get paid because of the level of skill that he brings to the table? He's a legit 6'6". So when I look at the combination of all of these players, combined with the fact that there were many occasions where I saw the Chicago Bulls not show up for a particular game with their A game. I definitely believe if you're telling me Steph Curry can't and Klay Thompson and this crew can't win a game, then how do we explain how the Knicks won a couple of games? How do we explain how the Indiana Pacers with Rick Smits and Dale Davis and Antonio Davis and Mark Jackson and Reggie Miller and those boys, how did they win a couple of games? I remember when Orlando got annihilated by the Chicago Bulls and swept 4 straight. They had Shaquille O'Neal. They also had Penny Hardaway and Nick Henderson. No disrespect because those brothers deserve respect and they could play. But that series, not when Michael Jordan came back, Skip, out of retirement for the final 17 games of the regular season in '95, and then they lost in the semifinals to the Orlando Magic. I'm talking about the following year when Rodman arrived and Michael Jordan was hell-bent on avenging that playoff loss to the Orlando Magic, and they annihilated Orlando. Literally, Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan went. I mean, if you could sit up there and think about something from a spiritual perspective, they went inside of Penny Hardaway and Nick Anderson's chest and snatched their heart from them. I'm saying to you, that's what they did to them. But they didn't do it to the Knicks. They didn't do it to Utah. They didn't do it to Indiana. They didn't do it to various other teams. So I'm looking at it. You trying to tell me that Golden State couldn't find a way to win a game or two? I'm not in any way saying they would have won the series. Hell no. They would not have beaten Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman and the crew. But could they have won a game or two when you can shoot like that? Yes, I believe they would have.
Okay. By the way, I'm not sure it's spiritual to go inside somebody and snatch their heart, but that's just me. But I get your point. And
I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I'm with your point. I'm with you.
Figuratively speaking.
Okay, figuratively speaking. Okay, now back to the question. Remember, I'm having to do the hypothetical of we put the two teams in a vacuum, but they would know of each other's reputation. So Michael Jordan would take the challenge of trying to sweep Steph Curry's Golden State Warriors. So they would know of each other's reputation. some of those series you're talking about, I don't think Michael and company took those teams very seriously. It's not like they're going to be playing the New Jersey Nets here. Well, I was there. I know how they didn't take the Nets. They didn't take the Charlotte. What were they then? The Hornets at that point? Were they still? Yeah, they were the Hornets then.
They took the Knicks.
Yeah.
They took
okay.
the
Now
Knicks
you're going
seriously.
back. Yeah. Okay. I got it. But sometimes they wouldn't take teams quite that seriously. They'd be looking down the road at, okay, we got to pace ourselves through. It's a long, hard playoff grind. But in this case, if it's just in a vacuum and you're playing best of 7 against a team that is threatening your legacy, I think Michael's going to be seek and destroy on Steph Curry. That's just me. I would never bet against Michael Jordan with a challenge.
Michael sought and destroyed. Listen, Michael sought and destroyed the Detroit Pistons his first year going to the finals. They swept them. Fair enough. He sought and destroyed the Orlando Magic after they had eliminated him from the semifinals in 95, I believe. Fair enough. But you know what? He took the Knicks seriously. They lost a couple of games to the Knicks. Okay? You look at various other series that Michael Jordan had played. He took the Lakers seriously his first NBA Finals. They won Game 1. He took Clyde Drexler and the Portland Trailblazers very seriously because of being disgusted with the comparisons where he dropped like 7 3-pointers in the first half on those boys. I think it was Game 1 or Game 2, but they still lost 2 games in that series. All right? You took Barkley and the Phoenix Suns seriously. You lost 2 games in that series. You were on the verge of sweeping Seattle with Sean Kemp and Gary Payton, but then lost 2 games after being up 3-0 before closing that in 6. You took Karl Malone and John Stockton seriously. You lost 2 there. All I'm saying is that, again, nobody's debating. Anybody that knows, nobody's really debating that from a matchup perspective. You're absolutely right, Skip. This is not a matchup that works in Golden State's favor. I would definitely give the edge to the Chicago Bulls to win the series. But I do think it is so disrespectful to sit up there and say that for 4 straight games, marksmen like Klay Thompson and Steph Curry would be completely shut down and annihilated, and that they don't have heart. Steph Curry's the babyface assassin for a reason. The brother's got heart, Skip. He ain't scared of anybody.
No doubt.
The shot's either falling or it's not, but he's not scared. He's going to come. He's not going to get his heart snatched out of his chest, even by a Michael Jordan or Scottie Pippen. I don't believe that about Steph Curry. I don't believe it for 1 second. Not when you can shoot that well. You are not scared of anybody because they can't do but so much when you can pull up from 40.
Okay,
they cannot do but so much.
I'm not trying to say that they would do a Nova on OU on Saturday night, 95 to 51.
Sooner dead.
Yeah, sooner dead is what I was that night. My team was, so to speak, figuratively.
Yes.
But my point is, they would be 4 close games, and Michael Jordan would win all 4 of them in the fourth quarter. I'm sorry, I saw it too many times. He's too physical. He's too much of a force of nature for this team that is not all that physical. It's more of a finesse basketball team, and we can play by today's rules or whatever rules. I think Jordan's team is going to win in the end.
Playing by today's rules, Golden State would get at least 1 game, probably 2.
2. Boy, that's. I wish we could do this tomorrow.
I know. And,
Yep.
you say sweep.
Sweep.
All
Yeah.
right. Now let's actually talk about the tournament here. And who's going to be cutting down the nets in Houston? Is it going to be the underdog Villanova or North Carolina? The guys making their picks next.